I'm Claire, 35 years old, and 2 weeks ago, I finally moved into the dream home I spent 14 months building. Every inch designed by me, paid for by me, and built with my own hands. But just days before my housewarming party, I came home to find wedding planners in my living room, furniture pushed aside, and my sister Alyssa beaming like she owned the place. "We're finalizing the layout for the ceremony," she said. My parents stood behind her and calmly explained that they were gifting my house to Alyssa as a wedding present. I thought it was a joke, until I saw the legal papers on the kitchen counter. Before I tell you how I fought back, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. And if you've ever had to protect what's yours from your own family, hit like and subscribe. Because this story, it's for you. Architecture has been my passion since I was 7 years old. I still remember sitting at the kitchen table while other kids were outside playing, carefully sketching floor plans on graph paper. That Christmas when I turned 10, my parents gave me my very first architecture book. I spent hours flipping through the pages, studying iconic buildings, dreaming that one day I'd design a home of my own. It wasn't just a hobby, it was a calling. After high school, I juggled 2 jobs just to afford tuition at architecture school. Unlike my younger sister Alyssa, I never once asked my parents for financial help. They weren't poor, not by any means, but somehow Alyssa always managed to get whatever she wanted. Brand new clothes, a car on her sweet 16, and later, her entire college education paid for. I, on the other hand, graduated buried in student loans that would take years to pay off. That financial weight sat heavy on my shoulders, but I reminded myself, this was my path, and I chose it. Despite the burden, I thrived in my career. Right out of college, I landed a position at one of the most prestigious architecture firms in the city. Over the course of 8 grueling years, I climbed the ranks, from junior architect to project manager, working 60-hour weeks and pouring everything I had into every blueprint. My designs earned awards, brought acclaim to the firm, and helped build a reputation for me as one of the rising talents in residential architecture. Through it all, I lived modestly in a tiny 1-bedroom apartment, just 700 square feet. While my friends were buying homes and Alyssa was moving into a luxury condo that our parents gifted her for graduation, I was scraping together every spare dollar for my dream. I packed my own lunches, drove the same beat-up Honda for over a decade, and skipped vacations unless a friend could offer me a spare couch. Every choice I made was a brick in the foundation of a future I hadn't yet seen but deeply believed in. Ethan, my boyfriend, whom I met at a client event 3 years ago, was the only person who truly understood the sacrifices I made. "You're playing the long game," he'd tell me, whenever I felt worn down by watching others indulge in comforts I denied myself. "And when you're done, you'll have something that's completely yours." Those words became my guiding light during the toughest days. When exhaustion came knocking, his voice reminded me why I kept going. After 5 long years of searching, I finally found it, the perfect piece of land. 3 acres overlooking Lotus Lake, with a sweeping view of the mountains and just enough privacy to create the sanctuary I had always dreamed of. It wasn't cheap, not by any stretch, but I had saved enough for a solid down payment and secured a construction loan to cover the rest. Holding that deed in my hands, I knew this wasn't just a purchase. It was the beginning of something far greater than me. For 6 straight months, my evenings and weekends were consumed by sketches and revisions. 3 bedrooms, a home office, an open living space with floor-to-ceiling windows to embrace the view, and a wraparound terrace that caught the morning sun. I handpicked every material, designed custom cabinetry, and selected each appliance with care. This wasn't just a house. It was the physical embodiment of my life's work, my passion made real. Every line I drew held a piece of my soul. The building process was both exhilarating and exhausting. I hired Mr. Mark Davidson, a contractor known for his painstaking attention to detail, but I was there nearly every day, making decisions, rolling up my sleeves when needed. I remember spending an entire Saturday installing mosaic tiles in the master bathroom, my fingers raw but my heart swelling with pride. When surprise costs crept in, as they always do, I picked up freelance design work on weekends to keep things on track. When the custom windows arrived in the wrong dimensions, I worked directly with the manufacturer to resolve the issue without delaying the timeline. When a sudden storm damaged materials, I rearranged the schedule and found replacements. Every obstacle became a test of will, and I met each one with sweat and grit. My parents visited the site exactly twice. Both times, my father, Mr. Robert Morgan, commented that the house was excessive. Too much space for one person, he said, glancing around the framed structure. You should have built something more practical. My mother, Mrs. Susan Morgan, spent most of the visit questioning whether I could truly afford it, even after I calmly reassured her, for the 100th time, that I'd planned every detail financially. In their eyes, I suppose, a daughter who stands on her own 2 feet isn't a point of pride, but a problem to manage. Alyssa came once, dragging her boyfriend Brian Carter along. While Brian asked thoughtful questions about design and layout, Alyssa walked through the site with that signature look of disapproval. "The island's too big," she muttered. "Why waste a whole room on a home office you'll never use?" I brushed it off as typical sibling rivalry. She'd always been the competitive one. I had no idea her words were just the first crack in what would become a nightmare. After 14 months of construction, inspections, and final touches, my dream home was complete. I stood in the courtyard the day Mr. Davidson handed me the final paperwork, staring at what we had built with something close to disbelief. Clean, modern lines, a natural stone facade, massive windows catching the last golden light of the sunset. It looked exactly like I'd envisioned, only more beautiful, more real. "You did it," Mr. Davidson said, placing a hand on my shoulder. "I've built a lot of custom homes, but never for a client this dedicated. This place is special because you poured your heart into every inch of it." I moved in gradually over the next 2 weeks, carefully placing each piece of furniture I had either saved for or built with my own hands. Every item had a story, a purpose, a reason for being there. Ethan helped me hang artwork and arrange my cherished collection of books, stacking them gently like memories on a shelf. One evening, as we sat on the terrace watching the sun melt into Lotus Lake, he turned to me and said, "This place is a reflection of you. Elegant yet grounded, beautiful yet practical, just like the architect who built it." The housewarming party was set for Saturday, a celebration not just of bricks and beams, but of the long, winding road that led here. I invited colleagues, close friends, neighbors who had cheered me on through the build, and of course, my family. It was meant to be a moment of joy, of triumph, of finally arriving after years of sacrifice. But what I didn't know was that my sister had plans of her own, plans that would crash into mine in the most painful way imaginable. 1 week before my housewarming party, I took a few days off work to finish the final touches on the villa. I wanted everything to be just right for the guests who would soon walk through my doors. I planted bright, cheerful flowers along the walkway, strung soft outdoor lights across the terrace, and arranged the furniture into cozy conversation areas. The house already felt like home to me, but I wanted it to feel inviting to others too. A place where warmth met elegance, a place that told my story, not just through words, but through atmosphere. On Tuesday evening, my phone rang. It was my mother calling to confirm what time they should arrive on Saturday. But before I could answer, she added, "Alyssa was wondering if we could come by before the party, just to take another look at the house." Then came the odd part. She and Brian are finalizing their wedding plans, and she needs to measure a few things. Measure? I paused mid-step, a wine glass in hand as I organized the custom-built kitchen cabinet I'd constructed myself. "Measure what, exactly?" "Oh, you know," my mother replied vaguely, "just to make sure everything fits. They're meeting with the wedding planner tomorrow, and Alyssa needs to give her some numbers." This was the first I'd heard of Alyssa needing to measure my home in connection to her wedding. Still, I agreed to the visit, assuming perhaps she wanted ideas for her future home. She and Brian had been engaged for 3 months, with the wedding set for next spring. They were still hunting for a venue. Alyssa had already turned down several for not being, in her words, special enough. The next day around 4 p.m., my parents arrived with Alyssa in tow. From the moment they stepped inside, something felt off. My mother was holding a thick binder labeled wedding, and Alyssa had brought along a friend, whom she introduced as their wedding planner. "The foyer's smaller than I remembered," Alyssa said almost immediately, eyes scanning the space critically. "Do you think we could fit a welcome table here?" Before I could ask what she was talking about, my father chimed in. "Show us the backyard again," he said. "I want to see where we might set up the tent." Still confused, I led them through the house and out to the expansive backyard that sloped gently down toward the lake. As I walked them around, Alyssa and the planner snapped photos and jotted notes. Alyssa paced along the perimeter, gesturing as though she were placing imaginary objects in midair. "This spot would be perfect for the ceremony," she said, pointing to the flat area near the water, right where I had planned to build a fire pit. Then we could serve dinner on the terrace and turn the main living space into a dance floor. A strange sinking feeling stirred in my stomach. Something was not right. "Alyssa," I said carefully, "are you thinking about having the wedding here?" She turned to me with a radiant smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Wouldn't it be perfect?" she replied. "Brian's family's huge, and we need somewhere special. No hotel ballroom comes close to this view." "But this is my home," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. "I only just moved in." "It's a family investment," my father interjected, a phrase I'd never heard him use before. "We should all benefit from it." There was something in his voice that made me deeply uncomfortable, but before I could say anything, Alyssa was already leading the wedding planner through the French doors into my living room. "This furniture will have to go," she said, gesturing at the custom sofa I'd designed to fit the space perfectly. "We'll need at least 15 tables in here." I followed them, growing more confused and anxious with every step. As we moved through the house, Alyssa's comments began to take on a tone of ownership. In the master bedroom, she turned to the planner and said, "This would be perfect for the bridal suite, don't you think? We can line up hair and makeup stations along that wall." In my home office, where I'd lovingly positioned my drafting table to catch the northern light, Alyssa pulled out a measuring tape and started marking the walls. "This could be a beautiful nursery one day," she said casually. "Nursery," I repeated, my voice rising slightly. "Alyssa, what exactly are you planning?" My mother jumped in quickly, her voice overly sweet. "Nothing is decided, sweetheart. Alyssa's just exploring some options. You do have a lot of space here, for just one person." Throughout the tour, my father kept making strange remarks about how the house was a family asset, and how everyone had contributed to making it a reality. That wasn't true, not even close. I had designed and financed the entire project myself, except for one $50,000 loan from my father during construction, when one of my investments hadn't cleared in time to cover a payment. I had repaid that loan in full 3 months ago. As they prepared to leave, Alyssa lingered in the kitchen, resting her hand on the marble waterfall edge of the island I had designed. "You know," she said, running her fingers along the cool stone, "Brian and I really need a place after the wedding. We've looked, but nothing feels right, nothing quite like this." The comment hung between us, heavy with implication. Before I could respond, she smiled brightly and added, "I can't wait to see what you end up doing with the place. Although, if it were me, I would have designed the master bath differently. The tiles you picked are already a little outdated." After they left, I called Ethan, still unsettled. "Am I overreacting, or was that seriously weird?" I asked him. "Oh, it was weird," he confirmed without hesitation. "It sounds like Alyssa's got her eye on your house, but it's yours. You designed it. You paid for it. You've got the receipts to prove it. Don't let her mess with your peace." I tried to push the incident out of my mind and focus on preparing for the housewarming. But that night, I had a dream, one that clung to me like fog. In it, I came home to find all my furniture gone, replaced with wedding decorations, and Alyssa standing in my kitchen saying, "Oh, no one told you? This is our house now." I woke up in a cold sweat, the unease from the dream clinging to my chest. Deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was more than just a dream. It was a warning. On Friday morning, the day before the party, I got up early, excited to wrap up the final preparations. I had a meeting at work I couldn't reschedule, but I'd planned to leave by noon, grab the catering I'd ordered, and spend the afternoon getting everything ready. Everything was going according to plan. By 11:30, I was wrapping up a client presentation. "Excellent work as always, Claire," my boss said as the client left. "You've seemed a bit distracted this week, but you really pulled it off today." "Thank you," I replied, gathering my notes. "I've been focused on getting my place ready for the housewarming tomorrow." "Ah yes, the famous villa. I can't wait to see it. Need any help with setup?" I smiled and politely declined, then headed out. I stopped at the bakery to pick up the dessert platter I'd ordered, then swung by the wine shop for a few extra bottles. My trunk was packed with everything I needed for the perfect housewarming party. Flowers, cocktail napkins, serving dishes, and little gifts for my guests. Custom coasters printed with a sketch of my new home. As I turned onto my street, I noticed several unfamiliar cars parked along the driveway leading up to my home. A large white truck with Elite Events printed on the side was backing up near my front door, and strangers, people I'd never seen before, were carrying equipment inside. Alarmed and confused, I pulled into the driveway and rushed toward the house. When I stepped through the door, I froze. My living room had been completely rearranged. The furniture I'd carefully selected and positioned was pushed against the walls, and 3 men were measuring the floors. In the center of it all stood Alyssa's wedding planner, barking instructions like she owned the place. "The dance floor will go here," she said, "and we'll need to remove these bookshelves to make room for the DJ setup." "Excuse me," I said loudly, setting down the boxes I was holding. "What is going on here?" The woman turned around, clearly surprised. "Oh, you must be Alyssa's sister. She said you might drop by. Don't worry, we're being careful with your furniture." "My furniture?" I repeated, stunned. "This is my house. Why are you moving my things?" Before she could respond, Alyssa emerged from the kitchen with Brian and another young man who looked like a caterer. "Claire," Alyssa exclaimed, as if nothing were wrong. "You're early. We thought you'd be at work longer." "What are you doing in my house?" I asked, my voice rising. "Why are these people touching my things?" "We're just working on the layout for the wedding," she said casually. "Don't worry, everything will be put back after." "After?" My mind scrambled to keep up. "Alyssa, I never agreed to host your wedding here, and I have a housewarming party tomorrow." Her expression hardened slightly. "About that," she said. "We were thinking maybe you could postpone it. We really need this weekend to finalize some decisions. The wedding's only 6 months away." Before I could respond, the front door opened again, and my parents walked in. My mother was holding a thick binder, and my father was on the phone. "Oh good, you're here," Mom said. "We need to go over the schedule. Alyssa needs to send out save-the-date cards next week, so we have to lock everything down today." "Lock what down?" I asked, my confusion quickly giving way to anger. I never agreed to any of this. My father ended his call and stepped closer. "Claire, don't be difficult. This is an important moment for your sister." "Difficult?" I gestured around the chaos that was now my living room. "You've invaded my home without permission and started rearranging everything I own." "This isn't just your house," my father said, waving a hand dismissively. "It's a family investment." "What are you talking about?" I demanded. "I designed this house. I paid for it. I built it with my own hands." My mother stepped forward and gently placed a hand on my arm. "Sweetheart, your father made a significant contribution. We've always talked about this being a shared family asset." "What?" I pulled away from her touch. "Dad loaned me $50,000 during construction, which I paid back in full 3 months ago. We never discussed it being anyone's property but mine." "That's not how your father remembers it," she said softly. "He recalls it being a much larger contribution." I turned to my father, who now avoided my eyes. "What have you been telling them?" He cleared his throat. "I covered most of the major expenses, the land, the foundation work, those custom windows. That was all me." I stared at him in disbelief. It was a blatant lie. I had documentation for every cost, every payment, every design choice. "That is absolutely not true," I said, my voice shaking. "I have the receipts, the bank statements. I paid for every single thing, except that loan, which is long settled." "Families help each other, Claire," my mother cut in. "And your sister needs this house more than you. You're on your own. She's starting a family." "What are you saying?" I asked, though some terrible truth was beginning to form in my mind. Alyssa stepped forward, wrapping an arm around Brian, who looked increasingly uncomfortable. "Mom and Dad are giving us the house as a wedding gift," she said brightly. "We'll be moving in after the honeymoon." The room tilted. My ears rang. "You're giving away my house?" I whispered. "The house I built?" "It makes sense," my father said firmly. "Alyssa and Brian need a place to start their life together. You can find a nice apartment in the city, closer to work." I looked from one face to another, searching for any hint that this was some sick joke. But there was none. "This is insane," I finally said. "This is my house. I have the title deed in my name. You can't just give it away." "Titles can be transferred," my father said dismissively. I've already spoken to my lawyer about it. Brian shifted awkwardly beside Alyssa and cleared his throat. I think maybe there's been a misunderstanding, he began, but Alyssa cut him off. There's no misunderstanding, she said sharply. Dad promised us this house months ago, even before we got engaged. We planned the entire wedding around it. Months ago? I repeated, stunned. You've been planning to take my house for months. No one's taking anything, my mother insisted. It's a gift, from the family, for Alyssa and Brian. I looked around my living room, and watched strangers measuring, scribbling notes, flipping through wedding binders, and casually mapping out the layout of my kitchen. Then I turned my gaze to my family, my father's unyielding expression, my mother's pacifying smile, and Alyssa's unmistakably smug satisfaction. Everyone needs to leave, I said, softly but firmly. Right now. Oh, don't be ridiculous, Alyssa scoffed. We've got things to do. Your housewarming can wait. No, it can't, I replied, my voice gaining strength. It's happening tomorrow, just as planned, in this house, my house, and none of you have the right to be here without my permission. My father stepped toward me, his face flushed with anger. Claire, you're being selfish and unreasonable. Your sister needs— I don't care what Alyssa needs, I shouted, finally losing my composure. This is my house. I designed it, I paid for it, I built it, and I want everyone out, now. The room went still. Even the workers stopped what they were doing. You heard her, Brian said suddenly, surprising everyone. Let's go, Alyssa. We shouldn't be here. Alyssa turned to him, betrayal written all over her face. You're taking her side? I'm not taking sides, he said cautiously. But if Claire says this is her home, and she has the documents to prove it, then we need to respect that. Mom, Dad, say something, Alyssa snapped, looking toward our parents. My mother looked stricken. My father's jaw clenched tight. This isn't over, Claire, he said coldly. We'll discuss this as a family. There's nothing to discuss, I replied. This is my property, legally and otherwise. Now please leave. Slowly, reluctantly, they began to pack up. The wedding planner clumsily directed the workers to gather their equipment. The caterer muttered a quiet apology as he slipped past me toward the door. As Alyssa walked out, she turned back with angry tears brimming in her eyes. You've always been selfish, she hissed. It's always about you. No, I corrected her. It's always been about what's convenient for you, at my expense. Once the last of them left, I locked the door and collapsed onto the couch, still reeling from everything that had just happened. My phone buzzed with a message from my mother. We need to talk this through calmly. Your father is very upset about the way you spoke to him. I didn't respond. My hands trembling, I called Ethan. They tried to take my house, I told him as soon as he answered. They actually tried to give it to Alyssa. When Ethan arrived, I broke down completely. I sat on the floor of my master bedroom, the same room Alyssa had so casually declared her bridal suite, and sobbed in his arms. I don't understand, I kept saying through my tears. How could they do this? How could they believe they had any right to my home? Ethan gently stroked my hair, his face etched with worry and quiet fury. I don't know, Claire, he whispered. I really don't. It's beyond comprehension. The betrayal was staggering. Every sacrifice I had made, every extra shift I had taken, every dollar I had scraped together, it had all led to this moment. A moment where my own family tried to steal the dream I'd built with my bare hands. It wasn't just about the house, though that alone would have been cruel. It was the utter disregard for everything I had worked for. 5 years, I murmured, staring at the custom light fixture I had designed myself. 5 years of saving and planning, 14 months of construction, where I showed up almost every single day. All those nights drafting plans until 2 a.m. I remembered the day they poured the foundation, how I took personal time off just so I could be there. I remembered installing the cabinet hardware with my own hands because I wanted it to be perfect. I remembered the pride I felt when the final inspection passed and the certificate of occupancy was issued. And they just walk in and decide it's Alyssa's wedding gift? My voice cracked. Like none of it mattered. Like I didn't matter. Ethan's jaw tightened. They can't do this, Claire. Not legally. They have no claim. Then why would they try, I asked, wiping my tears. Why would my parents support it? Why would they lie about paying for it? As I spoke, my phone buzzed again and again, texts from my mother flooding in. Please call us. We need to discuss this like adults. Your father is heartbroken about how you spoke to him. Alyssa is crying. Hope you're satisfied. Family should come first, Claire. Each message cut like another knife. Finally, I turned off my phone. I couldn't take it anymore. Then, the doorbell rang. Ethan went to check. He came back a moment later. It's Alyssa, he said gravely. She's alone. Part of me wanted to ignore her, but another part, one that still needed answers, refused to let her go without facing me. I splashed cold water on my face, took a long, steady breath, and walked to the front door. Alyssa stood on my porch, arms crossed, her eyes red but her expression defiant, not remorseful. Can I come in, she asked. For what, I replied. To measure another room? She let out a dramatic sigh. To talk, without the others. I hesitated. Then slowly, I stepped aside. We sat at my kitchen island, the same marble slab she had stroked possessively just days ago. Why, Alyssa? I asked simply. Why would you do this? She looked around the kitchen, avoiding my eyes. It just isn't fair, she said at last. You always get everything, the awards, the recognition, the perfect career, and now this incredible house. Everything? I echoed, incredulous. I worked for everything I have. Meanwhile, Mom and Dad paid for your college, bought you a condo, and continue to bankroll your lifestyle. That's different, she cut in. They helped me because I needed it. You never needed anything. I needed support, I said softly. Not financial, emotional. I needed someone to acknowledge what I'd achieved, to be proud of me, but instead, Dad called my career showing off, and Mom kept asking when I'd settle down like you. Alyssa shifted uncomfortably. They're proud of you, she muttered. They have a strange way of showing it, I replied, taking a deep breath. But none of that explains why you thought you could take my house. She looked down at her hands. Dad said it would be our wedding gift. He told us he contributed significantly, and that gave him part ownership. That's a lie, I said firmly. He loaned me $50,000 during construction, which I've already paid back in full. I have the documentation. Well, that's not how he framed it, she said defensively. He said it was partly his investment, and he had the right to give it to us. And you believe that? You actually thought it was okay to take over the house I designed and built with my own 2 hands. We were going to compensate you, she offered, as if that made it better. Dad said, I don't care what Dad said. I slammed my hand on the counter, making her flinch. This is my house. The fact that you even considered taking it shows just how little respect you have for me. Her face twisted, but I couldn't tell if it was genuine regret or practiced tears. You don't get it, she said weakly. Brian's parents are throwing this big wedding, but they're not giving us anything after. They expect us to figure things out on our own. When Dad offered the house, it seemed like the perfect solution. Perfect for who? I asked bitterly. Because it sure as hell wasn't for me. Ethan, who had been quietly standing in the doorway, stepped into the kitchen. Does Brian even know about this arrangement? He asked. Alyssa hesitated. Not exactly. He knows Dad's helping us find a place, but... Her voice trailed off. He doesn't know you've been planning to steal my house, I finished for her. That's why he looked so uncomfortable today. She didn't reply, but her silence was louder than any denial. As we sat in that charged silence, her phone lit up on the counter. A message from Mom. Is she being more reasonable? Remind her of her duty to the family. Something inside me snapped. I grabbed the phone before Alyssa could stop me and began scrolling. What I found made my stomach drop. Months of text between Alyssa and our parents. Planning, scheming, coordinating how they would take my house once it was finished. Dad says the loan gives him leverage, one message read. Mom thinks we should wait until after her housewarming to break the news, said another. We'll have to repaint that awful green in the living room, came a third. There were photos Alyssa had taken during her visits, annotated with comments about what they'd change, which furniture they'd keep, even which closet would be hers and which would be Brian's. You've been planning this for months, I said. My voice flat as I handed the phone back to her. Every time you criticized my design choices, you were already imagining how you'd undo them. Alyssa looked embarrassed. At least she made an effort to. It's not like that, she said weakly. Then what is it like? I asked. Explain to me how this isn't a complete betrayal. She couldn't. I think you should go, I said finally. And tell Mom and Dad not to come tomorrow. They're no longer invited to my housewarming. Claire, no, I cut her off. I'm done. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a miscommunication. This was a deliberate plan to take something that's mine, something I spent years building. I can't even look at you right now. After she left, I collapsed again. The evidence of their months-long deception was too much to bear. I curled up on the floor of my bedroom, struggling to breathe through the grief and betrayal. I can't do the housewarming, I told Ethan between sobs. I can't pretend everything's normal. I can't even see this house the same way anymore. Yes, you can, he said firmly, kneeling beside me. This is your home, Claire, your work, your dream. Don't let them stain it. But they were everywhere now. I could still see Alyssa measuring my office for a nursery. I could hear my father claiming credit for the custom windows. I could feel my mother's dismissive pat as she explained why Alyssa deserved my house more than I did. They were never proud of me, I whispered, the realization cutting deeper than theft. All these years, all my accomplishments, they never truly valued any of it. Ethan held me tighter. I'm proud of you, he said. Your friends are proud of you. Your colleagues respect you. Don't let your family's warped expectations define your worth. I nodded into his shoulder, but the pain stayed. This house had been my dream, my sanctuary, and now it felt poisoned by their betrayal. Every corner echoed with Alyssa's entitlement, my father's lies, my mother's quiet manipulation. How could I reclaim it as my own? How could I move forward knowing my own family had plotted against me? And more importantly, how could I protect myself from whatever they tried next? As night fell, I sat out on my terrace, wrapped in a blanket, staring across the lake, trying to reconnect with the joy I once felt here. But all I could hear was Alyssa's voice. This will be perfect for us, not for me, for them. And in that moment, I saw our entire relationship for what it was. I was always expected to sacrifice for Alyssa, to step back, to give up what was mine for her benefit. But not this time, not with this. This house is mine, and I will fight for it with everything I have. I woke the next morning with a new resolve. Ethan had stayed the night, sleeping on the couch to make sure I wasn't alone. He brought coffee to my bedside and sat quietly beside me as I stared at the ceiling, the weight of everything still pressing on my chest. What's the plan? He asked gently. First, I need to get my documents in order, I said, sitting up. Then I need emotional backup. I called my best friend Rachel, and she showed up within the hour, outraged on my behalf. They did what? She cried after I explained everything. Oh, hell no! That's unacceptable. With Rachel and Ethan by my side, I started gathering evidence, systematically, calmly, and with purpose. I pulled every financial record related to the house, bank statements showing deposits to the builder, the original land purchase agreement with only my signature, and the construction contract naming me as the sole client. I found the loan agreement with my father, dated 18 months ago, $50,000 exactly. Attached were records of the repayment, including a bank transfer receipt from 3 months earlier and a text from my father that read, "Received. No interest needed." Thanks. Next, I called Mr. Douglas, my construction manager. How's the house treating you, Claire? He asked cheerfully. It's perfect, Mr. Douglas, I replied, but I've run into a problem. I gave him a short version of what had happened. There was a long pause. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, he said. Your dad had nothing to do with the build. Aside from that one payment, which you paid back, you made every decision, signed every invoice. And yes, I have the paperwork to prove it. Would you be willing to put that in writing? I asked. Absolutely, he said without hesitation. I'll email you a full statement today. And Claire, don't let them get away with this. That house is yours, in every possible way. I thanked him and hung up, feeling just a little more grounded. Then I called my lawyer, Ms. Harper. This is a straightforward situation, she assured me. The property is legally in your name. Your father has no claim, especially since the loan was repaid in full. They can't gift something they don't own. What about their argument that it was always considered a family asset? Unless they have written documentation showing a shared ownership agreement, their claims are baseless, she said. Verbal agreements mean nothing when it comes to real estate, and even if they did, you have ample evidence to contradict their version of events. With her reassurance that I had full legal standing, I finally felt ready to confront the emotional part of this ordeal. Rachel insisted we move forward with the housewarming. "Don't let them steal your celebration," she said fiercely. "This is your moment, your achievement. The people who truly care about you will be there to honor it." I nodded. And together, we spent the next few hours prepping for the party. As we worked, Rachel helped me rehearse what I'd say when I had to face my family again. "Stay calm," she said. "Don't let them bait you. Stick to the truth. You hold all the cards here." Around noon, as we were arranging flowers in the dining room, I heard a noise from the front of the house. Looking out the window, I saw my mother trying to unlock the front door with a key I hadn't known she still had. "They're here," I told Rachel, my heart racing despite my preparation. "You've got this," she said, squeezing my hand. "Ethan and I are right behind you." I walked to the front door and opened it before my mother could figure out why her key wasn't working. She looked startled to see me. "I changed the locks this morning," I said coolly. "Do you need something?" She quickly regained composure. "We need to talk, Claire. Your father and I were up all night worrying about this situation." Behind her, I could see my father sitting in their car, on the phone. No sign of Haley. "There's nothing to talk about," I replied. "This is my house. The housewarming is happening today, as planned. You, Dad, and Haley are no longer invited." "That's what we need to discuss," she insisted. "Your father is heartbroken over how you spoke to him after everything he's done for you." "Exactly what has he done, Mom?" I interrupted. "Because I have full documentation showing who paid for what, and it wasn't him." She hesitated, then switched tactics. "Families support each other, Claire. Haley and Dylan need a place to begin their life together." "Then they can buy one, like I did," I said. "Or Dad can buy it for them, if he cares that much. But this house is mine." Her face hardened. "Your father wants to speak to you. He's on the phone with his lawyer right now." "Good," I said. "Because my lawyer is very clear. I hold full and exclusive ownership of this property. Dad has no legal claim." As we spoke, I noticed her eyes drifting past me, surveying the house. She was still taking inventory, still imagining it as Haley's future home. "Mom," I said firmly, pulling her gaze back to me. "This house is not available. Not for Haley's wedding, not as her home, not as a family asset. It's mine. The sooner everyone accepts that, the better." My mother's face was a careful mix of disappointment and calculation. "We're having a family dinner tonight at our house," she said. "Your father insists you come so we can resolve this." I nearly laughed at the absurdity. "I'm hosting my housewarming tonight, as you well know," I said evenly. "And there's nothing left to resolve. This house is mine, legally, morally, and unequivocally." "I need to finish getting ready for my guests," I continued, beginning to close the door. "If Dad wants to talk, he can call me tomorrow. But just so we're clear, any future discussion is about repairing our relationship, not about the ownership of my home. That issue is closed." After she left, I leaned against the closed door, my hands trembling slightly. "That went pretty well," Rachel said, stepping out from the living room where she'd been listening. "Not over yet," I replied. "That was just the opening skirmish." Throughout the afternoon, my phone lit up with messages. From my parents, and surprisingly, from Dylan. My parents' texts oscillated between guilt-tripping and vague legal threats. But Dylan's message was different. "Claire, I didn't know any of this until yesterday. I thought we were just looking at your house as a potential venue, not trying to take it. I'm horrified by how this has unfolded and told Haley we need to find our own place. I'm truly sorry." His words offered a small breath of relief. At least someone in this mess understood just how wrong it had all been. As evening approached, Rachel and Ethan helped me with the final touches for the party. My neighbors, Mrs. Baker and Mr. Thompson, dropped by early to help set up the bar. "We heard about what happened yesterday," Mrs. Baker admitted. "The workers were loud, you know. Just wanted you to know we're willing to testify if you ever need. We watched you build this place from the ground up. We know exactly whose house this is." Their quiet support meant more than they could possibly know. By 7, my home was ready for its proper debut, not as Haley's wedding venue or her future house, but as mine, my creation, my sanctuary, my triumph. As the first guest began to arrive, my phone rang, my father's number flashing on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. Tonight was about joy, not confrontation. The battle could wait until tomorrow, and I would be ready. Sunday morning arrived with the heavy stillness that follows a perfect night. The housewarming had been everything I'd hoped for. Friends and colleagues filled the space with laughter and genuine admiration. A few people asked about my family's absence, but I deflected with vague explanations about a scheduling conflict. I wasn't ready to speak the truth. Not yet. I was clearing the last few glasses when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw my parents' car and Haley's SUV parked in the driveway. Taking a deep breath, I texted Ethan and Rachel. "They're here, all of them." "Want us to come over?" Rachel replied instantly. "Not yet," I answered. "I need to handle this myself first." I opened the door and found them all on my porch. My father looking stern, my mother anxious, Haley defiant, and Dylan clearly uncomfortable. "We need to talk," my father said flatly. "As a family." I considered shutting the door, but decided to confront this on my terms. "Come in," I said, leading them into the living room. "Let's get this over with." Once they were seated, I remained standing, arms crossed. "Before any of you start, let me make one thing crystal clear," I said. "This house is mine. I have the paperwork to prove every cent I spent. I have statements from the construction manager confirming I made every decision. The title is in my name only. So if you came here to continue this fantasy about it being a family asset, you're wasting your time." My father leaned forward. "Claire, I made significant contributions to this house. $50,000, I interrupted, "which I repaid in full 3 months ago. I have the bank records and your text message confirming receipt." "That was just part of it," he insisted. "There were other contributions." "Name one," I challenged. "Show me an invoice, a wire transfer, a single check you wrote, besides that loan." He shifted uncomfortably. "We had an understanding." "No, we didn't," I said firmly, pulling a folder from the side table. "Here's the original land purchase agreement with only my signature. Here's the construction contract with only my name. These are bank statements showing my payments at every stage of the build." I laid each document on the coffee table, one by one. "And this," I added, "is a signed statement from Ann Douglas, the construction manager, confirming I was the sole client, made every decision, and paid for everything, except one payment covered by your loan, which was repaid." My mother tried to interject. "Claire, this isn't about paperwork. It's about family supporting each other. Haley and Dylan need—" "Stop," I said firmly. "This is not about what Haley needs. This is about respect. Respect for me, for my work, for what I've accomplished. If Haley and Dylan need a house, there are plenty of homes for sale, but this one already has an owner." Haley finally spoke. "You've always been so selfish, Claire, always putting yourself first." I let out a bitter laugh. "Selfish? I'm selfish for not handing over my house. The house I spent 5 years saving for, the one I personally designed and oversaw every inch of construction on, that makes me selfish." "You don't even need all this space," Haley snapped. "It's just you. We're starting a family. That doesn't entitle you to my property," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "And even if I lived alone in a 10-bedroom mansion, it would still be mine, to use as I see fit." My father stood up, his face flushed with anger. "Enough. I'm tired of this attitude. I've supported you your entire life." I looked him dead in the eye. "Supported me how exactly?" I challenged. "You didn't pay for my education. You didn't lift a finger to help with my career. You dismissed my choices, belittled my achievements, and now you're trying to take away the one thing I built with my own 2 hands." "We gave you life," my mother interjected. "We raised you. That was your responsibility," I cut in. "It doesn't entitle you to ownership over everything I've built as an adult." I turned to Haley. "And you, I saw the messages on your phone. You've been scheming for months, taking pictures of my house, planning how you'd redesign it, treating it like it already belonged to you. Do you have any idea how heartbreaking that was?" Haley looked momentarily ashamed, but the expression didn't last. She recovered quickly. "Dad said it would be fine," she mumbled. "He said you'd understand once we explained everything." "Explain what?" I shot back. "That my house was being stolen from under me? That my own family was conspiring behind my back?" Dylan, who had been quiet until then, finally spoke up. "I want to make something very clear," he said firmly, turning to my father. "I had no idea about this plan. I appreciate your desire to help us, sir, but I cannot and will not accept a home that clearly belongs to Claire. That would be wrong on every level. Haley turned to him, eyes wide with betrayal. Dylan, we talked about this. No, he corrected her calmly. You talked about it, with your parents. You told me your father was helping us look for a place. Not that he was giving us your sister's house against her will. The silence that followed was heavy. My father looked between Dylan and Haley, clearly thrown by the rift forming right in front of him. Well, he said finally, his voice clipped. If that's how you feel, Dylan, maybe we need to rethink this entire wedding plan. James, my mother gasped. Dylan stood. With all due respect, sir, if your support for our marriage hinges on me accepting stolen property, then yes. Maybe we do need to rethink everything. Haley burst into tears. This is all your fault, she screamed at me. You're ruining everything. I didn't ruin anything, I said, my tone calm but firm. I built a house. You tried to take it. My father was now pacing, his face dark red with fury. This house was supposed to be part of the family legacy. It's far too big for just one person. You're selfish for keeping it all to yourself. This isn't a family legacy, I snapped. It's my home, the home I designed, the home I paid for, the home I built, brick by brick. Blood is thicker than water, Claire, my mother murmured weakly. Family should come first. Actually, I corrected her, the full saying is, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. It means the bonds we choose are stronger than the ones we're born into. And right now, the people who respect me and my accomplishments aren't the ones I share blood with. I walked to the front door and opened it. I think we're done here. I've shown you the documents. I've made my position clear. This house is mine, legally and morally. And if you can't accept that, then there's nothing left to discuss. My father shot me a cold glare. You'll regret this, Claire. Turning your back on family, that's something you'll live to regret. I'm not turning my back on family, I replied. I'm setting boundaries. There's a difference. As they made their way to the door, Haley lingered behind. For a moment, I thought she might apologize. Instead, in a quiet, almost trembling voice, she said, I was always jealous of you, you know? The smart one, the successful one, the one who never needed help. I just thought, just once, I could have something you had, something special. Her words struck me like a slap. Haley, you can build something special for yourself, I told her gently. You don't have to take it from me. She wiped a tear from her cheek. It wouldn't be the same. It never is. As she stepped outside, Dylan paused beside me. I'm really sorry about all of this, Claire. I didn't know. I believe you, I said. And I'm sorry, too. This can't be easy for you. After they left, I closed the door and leaned against it, drained, but oddly lighter. The confrontation had been painful, but necessary. I'd stood my ground, laid out the facts, and defended the boundaries I never dared to draw before. For the first time in my life, I didn't sacrifice my needs to protect what Haley wanted. Ethan arrived 20 minutes later. He'd kept his distance at my request, but he was ready if needed. He pulled me into a long, strong embrace. How did it go? He asked. About as expected, I replied, leading him into the kitchen and pouring us both some coffee. Dad's furious, Mom's disappointed. Haley's playing the victim, and Dylan's stuck in the middle. And you? He asked, studying my face. I paused. I'm sad, I admitted. Sad that it came to this. Sad that my own family tried to take something so meaningful from me, but also relieved. Like I've finally broken out of a pattern I didn't even know I was trapped in. The pattern where you always made room for Haley, Ethan said. I nodded. Always putting her needs first. Always expected to be the responsible one while she got whatever she wanted. I think I've been playing that role my whole life without even realizing it. He reached across the table and held my hand. Well, this time, you stood your ground, he said. And I'm proud of you. The saddest part is, I said softly, if Haley had just asked to use the house for the wedding, I probably would have said yes. But they didn't ask. They assumed. They schemed. They tried to take. And that says everything about them, not about you, Ethan said gently. As the day wore on, 2 more messages came in. One from Dylan, apologizing again and saying he and Haley were having serious conversations about boundaries and expectations. The other was from my father. This conversation isn't over, but to me, it was. I had made my position clear. backed by documents, truth, and principle. This house was mine, and for the first time in my life, I hadn't given away something important just to keep the peace. The morning of the second housewarming dawned bright and clear, sunlight streaming through the east-facing windows I had so carefully designed to catch the morning light. After everything that had happened with my family, I decided to host a smaller gathering for neighbors and colleagues who couldn't make it the first time. It felt important, no, necessary, to reclaim my home with joy, to fill the space with warmth, to overwrite pain with new, better memories. As I arranged fresh flowers on the dining table, the doorbell rang. When I opened it, I was startled to find my father standing alone, his usual confidence replaced by something far more subdued. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. "Just the two of us." I hesitated, then stepped aside to let him in. We sat in the living room, the very space where our confrontation had exploded just days before. "This is a beautiful home, Claire," he said, glancing around with what seemed like genuine appreciation. "You've done an incredible job." "Thank you," I replied, cautious. I waited, unsure what was coming. He let out a long breath, heavy with something like shame. "I owe you an apology, a real one," he said, locking eyes with me. "I had no right to promise your house to Haley, no right to claim it as some kind of family property, and no right to diminish what you've achieved by building it." I sat there stunned. My father, James, rarely apologized for anything. "The truth is," he continued, "I've been struggling financially. The business has been going downhill for a few years now. I've tried to maintain appearances, but reality is catching up with me." He looked down at his hands. "When Haley and Dylan got engaged, I promised I'd help them get a home, but it was a promise I couldn't afford to keep. So you decided to give my house to them instead of your own." I couldn't hide the hurt in my voice. "It was wrong," he admitted. "Deeply wrong. I convinced myself it made sense. You're single, they're starting a family. You have a career. I told myself you'd understand the practical logic of it." "There's nothing logical about stealing someone's home, Dad," I said firmly. I know. He ran a hand through his hair. "The truth is, I think I've always been a little intimidated by you, Claire. Your intelligence, your drive, your independence. You never seemed to need me, not the way Haley did." "I did need you," I said softly. "Maybe not financially, but I needed your support, your pride. I needed you to see me, to celebrate what I'd worked for. Instead, you acted like my career was a phase, or worse, a form of showing off." He nodded slowly. "I see that now, and I'm truly sorry. What you've built here, it's remarkable. Not just the house, but your life, your work. I should have celebrated it with you, not tried to redirect it for Haley's sake." His words meant more than I expected. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. "Haley doesn't know I'm here," he finally said. "She's still upset. So is your mother, though I think she's starting to realize the part I played in all this. But I needed to come, to say it directly. I was wrong. Completely wrong." "Thank you, Dad," I said. "That means a lot to me." "I don't expect everything to be fixed overnight," he added. "But I hope maybe we can start to rebuild some trust." After he left, I sat in silence, letting the conversation settle. It wasn't a perfect resolution. There were still wounds, still broken pieces. But it was a beginning. A crack in the old family dynamic that had held us hostage for decades. Caleb arrived early to help with party prep. "Your dad was here?" he asked when I filled him in. "And he actually apologized?" "I was just as surprised," I said. "But he seemed sincere. He's struggling financially. That explains some of it, though it doesn't excuse it." "Do you forgive him?" Caleb asked gently. I considered the question. "I'm trying," I said. "Forgiveness isn't a switch you flip. It's a process. But today, it feels like a step." The second housewarming was smaller but no less joyful. My colleagues from the architecture firm admired the custom touches I designed. My neighbors welcomed me into the community, this time officially. And Lauren made sure no one's plate or glass went empty. Throughout the evening, I felt myself falling in love with my home all over again. Not just for what it was, but for what I had fought to keep. A week after the party, I received an email from Haley. It wasn't an apology, not exactly, but it felt like a shift. "I found a wedding venue yesterday," she wrote. "An old barn renovated into an event space, with mountain views. It's actually perfect for what Dylan and I want. More so than your place, she continued. I was wondering if you'd be open to looking at some design ideas for our first home. Not yours, but our own. We're starting to look at properties, and I really value your professional input. It was a small olive branch, but a meaningful one. I wrote back that I'd be happy to help with design ideas once they found a property, and offered to meet for coffee next week. My mother took longer to come around. You don't reset decades of family dynamics overnight. But little by little, over the course of several months, we began building new patterns, healthier ones. Family therapy helped. It gave us a neutral space to talk honestly about expectations, boundaries, and the unspoken rules that had governed our relationships for far too long. 6 months after the confrontation, I hosted a quiet family dinner at my home. It was the first time we'd all been together since that unforgettable day. There were still moments of tension, yes, but there were also real, unforced laughter and glimmers of connection. We were far from perfect, but we were making progress. After dinner, Haley pulled me aside onto the terrace. Your home is really beautiful, she said, gazing out over the lake. And it's completely you. I see that now. Thank you, I replied softly. That means a lot. I was jealous, she admitted. Not just of the house, of everything. Your confidence, your clarity about what you want, your ability to make things happen. You can have those things too, Haley, I told her, but you have to build them yourself. No one can hand them to you. She nodded slowly. I'm learning that, slowly. Then, with a small pause, she added, Dylan and I found a property. It's not as grand as this, but it has potential. If you're still willing to help with design ideas. I'd be honored, I said sincerely. That night, after everyone had left, Caleb and I sat together on the terrace, soaking in the quiet peace of the lake under the stars. You know what I've learned from all of this? I asked, watching the sky reflect in the water. What's that? That ownership isn't just about property. It's about your life, your choices, your boundaries. For years, I let family expectations lay claim to pieces of me. I gave up my power just to keep the peace. Caleb nodded. And now I own my life completely. Just like I own this home, not selfishly, but truthfully. I'm willing to share, but I won't surrender. He raised his glass to mine. To ownership. To ownership, I echoed. And to building, not just homes, but relationships grounded in respect and fueled by earned love. In the years since completing my villa, I faced challenges I never saw coming. But through them all, I've gained something far more lasting than hardwood floors or designer finishes. I found my voice. I claimed my space. I began the long, imperfect work of rebuilding family on a foundation of mutual respect. My home now stands not just as a testament to my architectural vision, but to the quiet strength it took to defend what mattered to me. Every room holds a memory, not all joyful, but all true. And when I look out across the peaceful lake, I feel a deep sense of belonging. Not just to this place, but to myself. The villa I built isn't just a luxurious residence. It's a symbol of self-worth, of boundaries honored, of dreams protected. And that, to me, makes it more valuable than any price tag could ever measure. What about you? Have you ever had to stand your ground with family to protect something important to you? How did you handle it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe for more true life stories about family dynamics, personal boundaries, and the quiet courage it takes to stand up for yourself. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the strongest foundations we build aren't made of concrete, but of self-respect and healthy boundaries.